My husband took care of his first love during her entire pregnancy. When I had a high fever that wouldn't go away, he was on his phone looking up what to do about severe morning sickness for her. On the anniversary of my mom's death, he was outside his first love's delivery room praying for the safety of mother and child. That day, his first love was safe. He was the one who lost it. Ethan came home smelling like alcohol and casually kissed me. I blushed, covering my belly with one hand, and tried to avoid him a bit. He noticed and pulled me into his arms a little harder, his voice rough as he asked, "What are you avoiding?" I bit my lip and gave him a hint, "Turn off the light first." The only light in the room was the lamp on his bedside table. Next to it, I had deliberately placed my pregnancy test results. I was pregnant and had planned to tell him today. But before he noticed that, his phone rang suddenly. Usually, he would just pick up and hang up. But now, his hand holding the phone paused over my pregnancy test results. The caller ID showed just 2 words, Monica. Monica was Ethan's first love. His arm around me loosened unconsciously. "I need to take this call." The door closed. I stared blankly at the ceiling. It wasn't the first time he'd taken a call when we were together, but Ethan would usually answer right in front of me. Monica was different. After a long time, the door opened again. He came in smelling like smoke, bent down to kiss me. Thinking about the baby in my belly, I turned my head instantly, and his kiss landed on the corner of my mouth. He frowned and told me, "You're acting strange tonight." Then he turned to change clothes, saying there was an urgent case he needed to handle, and told me to sleep without waiting for him. Ethan owns his law firm and never takes emergency cases. Before leaving, he suddenly bent down closer to me, asking, "Do I still smell like smoke?" I froze for a moment. He frowned and mumbled, "I heard pregnant women shouldn't smell smoke." My heart skipped a beat, thinking he knew. But then he abruptly straightened up, ruffled my hair, and said, "Why tell you, you're not pregnant." He didn't look back as he left the room. I stared at the pregnancy test results on the bedside table. If I'm not the one who's pregnant, then who is? Later, I understood. It was Monica who was pregnant. After Ethan left, I called my best friend Lily, planning to tell her I was pregnant. "Got something to tell you, don't freak out," she stopped me. "I've got 3 things to tell you first." Don't freak out. Monica got divorced. Monica came back. Monica is pregnant. 3 sentences, like stones thrown into a calm lake. Ripples spread everywhere. My mind went blank. About half a minute of silence. "Well, I see. What was it you were gonna tell me?" I asked. I made up an excuse, "I kinda want some pizza." Suddenly, I didn't want to tell anyone. I had been secretly in love with Ethan since high school, and then we went to the same college. We kept in touch occasionally. Senior year, he unexpectedly showed up at our group's farewell dinner. But he kept drinking silently with red eyes. I took the very drunk him home. He was drunk but still sober enough. "Wendy?" "Yes, it's me," he said, "let's give it a try." At that moment, I thought my longtime crush had finally blossomed. Only later did I find out that day was special. Ethan had told me not to wait for him, and indeed I didn't wait up all night. Instead, I received a friend request on Instagram. From Monica. I accepted. She didn't speak. She just tweeted a full-length mirror selfie. "Thanks for helping me set up my new place late at night. A new start, for me and you." Her hand rested on her belly, slightly rounded. Even more glaring was the reflection in the mirror of a man's arm, wearing the watch I gave Ethan for our first wedding anniversary. I checked the time. It was 12:43 a.m., and Ethan was helping his first love move into her new home just when I was ready to tell him we were expecting a new life. He rushed to find Monica overnight. How ridiculous. The year I graduated, I struggled with finding a place and moving. We had just started dating, and I didn't dare trouble him, so I managed it all on my own. One night, a drunk kept knocking on my door. I was terrified and called Ethan, my emotions boiling over as I sobbed uncontrollably. After learning what had happened, he called the police and rushed over. I found out the next day that he had driven 2 hours overnight from another city to get to me. I worried about his work. He was upset that I rented such an unsafe place. He then started looking for a new apartment for me, moved me to a safer neighborhood, and covered a year's rent. I felt lost and teary, mumbling a thank you and promising to pay him back. He laughed at me, pulling me into his arms. "Wendy, I'm your boyfriend." I thought only girlfriends got such privileges now. Monica seemed to be showing off to me intentionally. I obliged and liked her post. Ethan didn't come home that night. I dozed off. The next morning, I saw his message. "Got home too late last night, didn't want to disturb you, went straight to the office today. I'll pick you up for dinner after work." I typed and retyped my reply, wanting to ask if he knew about Monica, if he was with her last night, and to tell him he was going to be a dad. But I didn't send any of it. My stubbornness kicked in. I thought, if anything, Ethan should be the one to tell me. "Okay," I replied. After work, Lily called, asking me to go to IKEA with her. "Ethan's picking me up later for dinner," I reminded her. "Well, at least he's not running off to see Monica." I didn't say anything. Just after hanging up, Ethan called. "Sorry, Wendy, I have to entertain a client tonight, can't have dinner with you." I looked down. "Okay." Went to IKEA with Lily. She wanted to buy a kid's desk for her niece, so I wandered around aimlessly a turn. "Ethan, I don't want to change. This outfit looks terrible with slippers." Suddenly, I see Monica. Standing in front of her is Ethan. The same Ethan who told me he had to work late with clients. Ethan is holding a pair of slippers. Despite Monica's playful protest, he kneels down and starts taking off her high heels. Pregnancy isn't suited for high heels. Monica keeps saying no, but she still sweetly lets Ethan switch out her heels. She smiles warmly. "Ethan, you'll be a great dad one day." Ethan pauses and smiles. My heart aches. I used to tell him that. When he told me he wanted to have a baby, I babbled on about decorating a nursery. Ethan squeezed my cheek and said, "The way you describe it, any designer would go crazy." But a few days later, he showed me a design draft. He pieced together my scattered ideas into a kid's paradise. I teared up, feeling a swelling in my chest. I sincerely told him, "Ethan, you'll be a great dad one day." He didn't reply back then. Now Monica's saying it. I think I should leave. If I confront them, I'll be the one embarrassed, not Monica. But Monica sees me. "Wendy." Her eyes light up as if she's seen a long-lost friend. She walks quickly toward me. In that moment, I see Ethan reach out to steady her, telling her to slow down, fearing she might fall. I'm the one who looks foolish. Monica insists on catching up. I'm angry, upset that Ethan lied yet is so calm facing me. Even a flicker of guilt or panic would be better. I wouldn't feel so insignificant then. I pull my hand away. I don't use much force, just enough to remove my hand from Monica's grasp. But wearing slippers, she nearly loses her balance. Ethan catches her. He frowns at me. "Wendy, Monica's pregnant. Whose fault is it?" My nose tingles. I clench my fists, nails digging into my palms, fighting back tears. At least I won't look too pathetic. I force a smile. "It's my fault, sorry." "Are we good now, Ethan?" I recall my first job when coworkers bullied me. We were preparing a bid, and problems with it surfaced 2 days before submission. It needed redoing, but senior staff shifted the blame onto me. I insisted it wasn't my fault. No one from leadership believed me, and I took the fall. I felt angry and wronged but stubbornly held back tears. When I met Ethan, he noticed something was off and asked, "What's wrong?" If no one had asked, I might have kept it in forever. But Ethan asked, and my tears flowed. I sobbed out the bid story, barely making sense. Ethan listened patiently, then wiped my tears. "Don't cry. I won't let you be wronged." Later, news broke about that company evading taxes. It was small, and an investigation shut it down. I realized Ethan's law firm was behind it. Remembering the past, I can't hold back tears. It's not about the embarrassment now. I just don't understand how people can go back on their words so easily. Back then, he promised I wouldn't be wronged. Now? I believed in sincerity, but it changes in an instant. Seeing me cry, Ethan looks panicked. He lets go of Monica, wanting to come over. Wendy, I step back, hiding my hands. Defensive. Don't touch me, I say. Ethan's hand hovers midair. Monica glances at me and takes his hand, pressing it down. Wendy, I'm Ethan's client now. He's helping me with my divorce case. I needed new furniture for my new place, so I asked for his help. If you're unhappy, think it's inappropriate, I'll leave now. Ethan, I'll take a cab, you take Wendy home. Explain things to her, no arguing. Monica walks away gracefully. She's so clever. A considerate, gentle person earns sympathy. The one who clings looks unreasonable. Back home, Ethan hands me his phone. Monica's just a client. There's nothing between us. I'm tired. Zero interest in checking his phone. I'm not causing a scene, just ignoring him. But he loses his cool. After a night of my cold shoulder, he yanks me out of bed. Wendy, how long will you keep this up? I didn't want you upset today. Monica even left directly out of consideration. She's pregnant, giving way for you. Tell me, what do I need to do to make you happy? I'm burning up, dizzy. But all I want is to laugh. Now I'm the unreasonable one. Monica's pregnant, so what about me? My pregnancy test is still on the bedside table, clearly visible. Because of work, Ethan is always aware of all the changes at home. I threw away a withered flower, and he bought a new one the next day and replaced the entire vase. But now, he turned a blind eye to the pregnancy test report in front of him. I can tell him directly, Ethan, I'm pregnant. Then what? See if he will change his mind and give up Monica? Can Monica's existence be ignored? Now, it doesn't matter whether I'm pregnant or not. I have a clear idea. Ethan, I don't want to talk about this now, I'm very tired, can you let me rest first? But Ethan is sometimes as stubborn as a child. He insists on solving the problem before resting. I sighed, pulled his hand over and put it on my forehead. Ethan, I seem to have a fever. Ethan was stunned for a moment, and immediately went to find the spare medicine box. Why didn't you say it earlier? He put a fever-reducing patch on my forehead and found me some internal medicine. I touched my abdomen, lowered my head and said, I'm afraid of bitterness, can you find me a candy? There was no candy at home, so Ethan had to go to the supermarket downstairs to buy some. After he left, I got up and flushed the medicine into the toilet. After he came back, I ate the candy he bought as usual. I don't know if it was my weakness after the illness that aroused his desire to protect me, or if my tears during the day made him feel guilty. Tonight, he was particularly gentle. He stayed by my bed, kept changing the water on the bedside table to warm water, took my temperature every half an hour, and kept using a wet towel to help me cool down. His actions showed that he loved me. However, this did not prevent him from using his mobile phone to check what to do with morning sickness while taking care of me. Before that, he had just received a call, and he still walked out of the bedroom before answering it. The only person who could make him answer the phone like this was Monica. After he came back, I thought he was going out. As a result, he just took my temperature, changed the fever patch on his forehead, and then sat down again. I turned my head and looked at him puzzled. He asked me, what's wrong? I shook my head, said nothing, and closed my eyes to rest. But at this moment, my 5 senses were unusually sharp. The bedroom was dimly lit, and the light from his phone screen was dazzling, shining directly on my eyelids. I couldn't help but open my eyes and saw him checking what to do with morning sickness. Then I edited it into a text message and sent it, and finally added a note, Ethan, pregnant women can't take medicine casually, it will affect the child. I ordered oranges for you to see if it can get better. If it doesn't work, go to the hospital. Monica replied quickly, I don't dare to go to the hospital alone. Ethan, can you accompany me? Wendy has a fever, I can't leave. Okay, you take good care of her, I can do it myself. She is a smart girl and understands Ethan very well. Ethan doesn't like girls who make trouble, but he easily feels guilty. So she never pesters him, and always retreats to advance. On the surface, she doesn't make trouble, but she holds Ethan's heart firmly. Sure enough, the conversation that could have ended, Ethan still paused and replied to her. If you still feel uncomfortable tomorrow, I will accompany you to the hospital again. You should also have a good rest, don't exhaust yourself. Putting down his phone, Ethan lay down and pulled me into his arms, sighing in my ear, Wendy, get well soon. Do you really want me to get better? Or after I get better, you can accompany Monica to the hospital without any psychological burden? I was calm inside. It doesn't matter which one it is. My physical fitness is not bad. Although I didn't take medicine, the fever still subsided after a night of physical cooling. Ethan is now asleep because he took care of me all night. I got up and cooked a pot of fragrant porridge. A lot, more than enough for 2 people. After Ethan and I finished drinking, he looked at the remaining porridge and I took it to the law firm. Okay. I found him an insulated box and put a Buzz Lightyear sticker on it. He habitually wanted to kiss my forehead before he went out. I subconsciously dodged, but then I felt that this action was too abrupt. Before Ethan got suspicious, I took the initiative to help him adjust his tie. He finally said nothing, touched my forehead, the fever subsided. Are you still uncomfortable? Much better. Ethan went out. I took a leave of absence today and planned to go to the hospital for a pregnancy test. On the way to the hospital in a taxi, I checked Twitter. I saw Monica's update. The thermos box with the cartoon picture of Buzz Lightyear. I clicked a like and commented, "Is it delicious?" I made it. When I arrived at the hospital, I suddenly didn't want to register. But I didn't leave. I sat quietly in the hospital lobby waiting. About half an hour later, Ethan and Monica walked in. Monica smiled and talked to Ethan. He lowered his head slightly, his expression was gentle, and he listened very seriously. I tried to recall whether Ethan had listened to me so gently. The answer is yes. I have a lively personality, but I don't like to communicate with my colleagues at work. I often hold back a lot of words, and when I get home, I keep talking to Ethan like pouring beans. Ethan will put down his work at this time, listen to me talk a lot of nonsense carefully, and then hand me a glass of warm water at the right time. But this is not just for me. That person can also be Monica. Ethan didn't see me, and they entered the elevator. A pregnant woman came to get a checkup. She asked me for help. I thought for a moment, nodded, and agreed to go with her to the obstetrics and gynecology department. Through the crowd, I saw Ethan again. With all the couples waiting for pregnancy checkups, he and Monica fit right in. In fact, their striking looks made them stand out. Their child would probably be beautiful. The pregnant woman beside me sighed. I looked at Ethan, but didn't reply. Suddenly, Ethan looked up, saw me across the bustling crowd, and froze. He looked panicked as he walked toward me. I thought, second time, Ethan. This time, I smiled at him. He reached me and instinctively grabbed my hand. Seeing that I didn't pull away, he sighed with relief. Monica came to the law firm today with divorce paperwork. She wasn't feeling well, so I came to the hospital with her. I know, I said, still smiling. Monica came up, too, saw Ethan holding my hand, and looked away. Then she turned to me, Wendy, I asked Ethan to come with me. Don't blame him. I kept smiling, Ethan told me. Monica studied my face. I calmly met her gaze. She suddenly smiled and said, tastes good. Tastes good? Tastes good. Monica's words hit their mark, right in the heart. I clenched my fists but kept my face calm. Not now, Wendy. Wait a little longer. Ethan bought a lot of groceries. He rarely cooked, but today he was very diligent. He even bought flowers and lit candles. Under the dim, romantic candlelight, he kissed my forehead and promised, "Monica and I are just friends. If you're unhappy, after the divorce is settled, I won't see her again." I asked, "Ethan, if Monica had come back on our wedding day, would you still have married me?" He was silent. And silence was the answer. He realized he should say something. I covered his mouth. "Remember what you said, Ethan. Breaking promises has consequences." Ethan spent more and more time with me. But Monica was still between us. Ever since things were out in the open, he didn't call her an anonymous client anymore. He told me directly it was Monica. It was as if, as long as he was honest about seeing her, their relationship was purely professional. I would just nod quietly. But whenever he said he was meeting Monica, I'd ask him to bring something back. Nothing special or urgent. Sometimes it was a few apples or a magazine. This went on for 2 weeks. Once, Ethan told me he was meeting Monica for work. I purposely didn't ask him to bring anything. He left but came back. "Don't you need anything today?" I shook my head. He insisted, "Really?" I smiled. "We're out of olive oil. Bring a bottle back." He kissed my forehead happily, then left. The beautiful, sweet exterior was just hiding something rotten underneath. In 2 days, it was Ethan's birthday. He usually celebrated twice, once on the actual day and once the day before. The earlier celebration was for his colleagues at the law firm. He's the boss, so they always throw a party for him. The first year, he only celebrated on the actual day and invited me to join his office party. But I'm not good at socializing and felt I might ruin their fun as an outsider. So I declined. The next day, Ethan celebrated with just me. I asked him why. He said, "If you're not there, it doesn't count." From the second year on, he had the office celebrate a day early and saved the actual birthday for me. This year was no different. Normally, I wouldn't go to his office party. But this time, I suddenly wanted to. Monica had just tweeted, "This year, as every year." The picture attached was a heart-shaped cream cake with a drawing of a boy and girl, resembling her and Ethan in high school uniforms. They met in high school. Seems like they wanted to reminisce about old times. I just wanted to see how she planned to turn this year into every year. The office was warmly decorated. I bought a carton of yogurt on my way and arrived when they had already started. I was a bit late, but sometimes it's better to be late. Ethan and Monica were standing side by side by a grill. Monica, probably from standing too long with her pregnant belly, seemed to have back pain. She held her lower back and complained to Ethan with a pout. He said a few words, but she shook her head, pouting like a girl with her boyfriend. Ethan gently massaged her lower back. The yogurt in my hand felt cold. I held it tight. "Why don't you go over?" It was Jack, Ethan's law firm partner. Even though I don't come to the law firm often, people there all know me. I smiled and said, "In a bit." Jack didn't understand why until he turned around and saw Ethan rubbing Monica's back. Jack turned to look at me in shock, then shouted, "Wendy's here." Ethan and Monica looked over at the same time. In an instant, Ethan immediately let go of Monica's waist like he'd touched a hot iron. He walked over to me quickly, almost hurriedly, like he wanted to prove something. He pulled me into his arms tightly. "Wendy, there's really nothing between me and her." "But Ethan, this is the third time." I swallowed the metallic taste rising in my throat and pushed him away. "I brought you some yogurt." Ethan let go of me, his eyes like hooks, locked onto my face, trying to read something from it. I just smiled at him, my lips curved, eyes crinkled. "For you to drink before you have alcohol." "But, am I interrupting something?" Ethan shook his head, holding my hand tightly like afraid I might run away. "No, you're not. I'm happy you came." He led me to another grill, avoiding Monica on purpose, not giving her a single glance. It was Monica who came over, smiling at me. "Wendy, you're here too." "I'm just here to bring Ethan some yogurt. I'll leave soon." Ethan wanted to leave with me. Monica's mask cracked, seemingly unable to believe Ethan would choose me, always composed and graceful, she unusually tried to keep him. "Ethan, you're leaving me here alone?" Ethan hesitated and said, "I'll ask Jack to bring you home." Recently, Ethan's been coming home early, spending most of the day at home and taking care of all the housework. He's also bought me more bags and jewelry. I gladly accepted, and buying them seemed to make him happier. But as days passed and I remained calm, Ethan seemed to grow uneasy. He held me, kissing me anxiously. "Why aren't you angry?" I knew exactly why, but I played dumb. Angry for what? "On your birthday, I helped Monica." "Ethan, you asked me to trust you." He grew agitated, grabbing his hair. "I don't even know what's wrong. I just feel like you shouldn't be like this." "Wendy," he gave up searching for the source of his anxiety, kissing my fingers slowly. "I've handed Monica's case to Jack. I won't be in contact with her anymore." I listened silently. Ethan said he had cut ties with Monica, but Monica had set up a meeting with me during the worst of my pregnancy symptoms. I declined her twice, citing that I was unwell. But I hadn't expected her to show up at my office. Near the end of the workday today, I had just come out of the restroom when the receptionist told me there was a lady looking for me. I knew it was Monica but didn't rush out. I'd just been retching in the restroom, looking pale and weak with no aura. I freshened up, and met Monica at the cafe downstairs. Her first words were, "You're very clever." I remained composed. "Every time I met with Ethan, you'd have him bring you something. You did that on purpose, right? So even when he was with me, he couldn't help but think of you." I knew Monica would find out eventually, but I wasn't afraid of her knowing. She poured me some tea. "Thank you for being with Ethan during this tough time. But now, I'm back. He doesn't need you anymore." The nausea surged, and I tried hard to suppress it. Monica continued, "May 16th, the day Ethan spent with you, was the anniversary of me officially dating my ex-husband. He was with you despite me." The nausea turned into stabbing pain, and cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I bit down hard, refusing to show any weakness. December 3rd was the day my ex-husband and I got our marriage license. The next day, Ethan posted a picture of the marriage certificate with you, also to spite me. My lips were bleeding, the taste of blood filling my mouth. My stomach spasmed, the pain making it hard to sit upright. "Wendy," Monica looked at me with pity, "I didn't want to shatter your illusions, but you must know, every time Ethan was with you, it was because of me. If I hadn't left, there'd be no place for you." I couldn't hold it in anymore and ran to the restroom. I hadn't eaten much, so there was nothing to vomit out. But the nausea and spasms drained all my strength. Anger and madness filled me, making me want to destroy everything around. Why? On what grounds? But in the end, all I could do was curl up in a corner, hugging myself, quietly waiting for the pain to pass. When I emerged from the restroom, I was back to normal. Thanks to the lipstick I'd put in my bag, I looked no different than before. Monica stayed polite. "What took so long? You okay?" "Just had an upset stomach. Sorry for the wait." "So, do I need to say more?" Monica looked at me. A direct, in-your-face dismissal. The pain in my stomach seemed to have moved to my heart, as if someone was gripping and releasing it with malice. My hand clenched the edge of the table tightly. I adjusted my breathing and forced a smile. "This position of mine, do you really want it that badly? If I give it to you, your position will be empty. An empty spot of unrequited love and longing." Monica wanted it all. She said, "With me, Ethan's life is complete. There won't be anyone else." I laughed softly. "Monica, good things don't come that easy." The conversation with Monica abruptly ended. When I got home, I opened a storage cabinet from our dating days to our wedding. Up till now, all the gifts commemorating our special moments were in there. In an instant, all the pent-up emotions exploded. I destroyed everything. What I couldn't break by hand, I used scissors. Until everything was in ruins, including the never-found pregnancy test results. But the agitation and anger in my heart grew more intense. It had no outlet, nowhere to vent. The nausea surged again, and I rushed to the restroom, vomiting bile. Ethan came home, concerned, patting my back. Are you okay? The agitation still had no outlet, like an overinflated balloon. I tackled him to the ground with all my might, pressing scissors to his neck. Ethan, I want you dead. Ethan's eyes were filled with tenderness. As long as it makes you feel better. Every time, every single time, it felt like Ethan loved me. But also, every time, it felt like he loved someone else too. My mind cleared in an instant. But not now. Ethan carried me to the bed. He stared at the ceiling, random images flashing through my mind. Ethan, can you stay with me lately? I asked. I made a list of things to do, and besides us, there was an imaginary baby on it. Ethan agreed, and he did it. First thing. In the living room, Ethan made me a glass of milk before bedtime. I drank it, and he told me to go to sleep. I went to the bedroom and came out again with a can of baby formula and a bottle in hand. Ethan looked puzzled. I smiled faintly. Don't you want a baby? You need to learn how to make formula. At first, Ethan was clumsy. He couldn't get the water to formula ratio right, or the temperature was off. It was a mess. But he seemed to get into it, enjoying it even. By the last few times, he was almost eager to go downstairs and find a kid to feed the formula he just made. I checked the first item off the list. Second thing. In the kitchen, I prepped the ingredients while Ethan was the chef. But today, I prepped a little bit extra. Ethan was confused. I said, the baby is a bit older now, we can start with some solid food. Ethan quickly took out his phone to look up recipes for baby food. Ethan could cook, and after a few tries, he got the hang of it. Making baby food wasn't a problem for him. He even started making different varieties each day, balancing fruits, rice, vegetables, and meat. I checked the second item off the list. Third thing. When Ethan was about to get off work, I called him to buy some baby gates and a play mat. I told him we needed to clear a space at home for the baby to play. He happily agreed. Lately, Ethan was really into playing the dad role. It was like a surprise box. He eagerly awaited what new dad tasks I'd give him each day. While choosing the gates and mats, he video called me constantly, seriously discussing the materials with the sales clerk like he was analyzing a case. He took a long time, so long that the mall closed, and it was already past 10 p.m. when he got home. But he was enthusiastic, not tired, and started setting up a corner of the hall with the gates and play. Mathis will be the baby's play area, he said, hugging me from behind, his voice excited. I checked the third item off the list. Fourth thing. I asked Ethan to find a kindergarten. He looked at various price ranges and chose one that cost over $4,000 per term. I said it was too expensive. Ethan replied, it's okay, the baby shouldn't start behind. He even bought backpacks in both boys and girls styles, not knowing if our child would be a boy or girl, so he ended up getting a few of each. I smiled and placed the bags neatly in the children's room. I checked the fourth item off the list. Fifth thing. Ethan went to check out elementary schools. Sixth thing. Ethan went to check out middle schools. Seventh thing. Ethan and I discussed extracurricular classes. If it's a boy, we'd have him learn chess and taekwondo. If it's a girl, we'd go with piano and dance. The next day, Ethan reconsidered and said, those should just be our suggestions. If the kid has their own interests, we need to respect them. I checked the seventh item off the list. Then there was a question. I asked him, Ethan, if it's a daughter, what kind of person would you want her to marry? Ethan answered without hesitation, she could stay single forever. I looked at him quietly. He rephrased seriously, of course, someone who loves her wholeheartedly, cherishes her, understands her, and never lets her suffer. What if that person has someone else in their heart? I asked. Divorce. I'd personally fight her case and make sure he loses everything. What if she's pregnant? No compromise. She'd terminate the pregnancy. That's being responsible for herself and the child. Terminate, then divorce, that's the best way. I nodded in agreement. You're right. Ethan lifted me up, Wendy, when will our baby come? He seemed eager for our child. He genuinely seemed to want to build a home with me. Ethan fell asleep next to Maya's phone buzzed with a message. Ethan, my due date is next week, I want you with me then. There was another unread message from a maternity center, confirming his reservation. I opened his shopping history. He had bought a childbirth kit and many items needed for both the mother and newborn. Everything was well prepared. His browser history was filled with searches about postpartum care. How to care for new mothers. What are the precautions during postpartum confinement? How to deal with postpartum depression. How to choose the most reliable nanny. While he was indulging in his new dad role, he was also preparing everything for Monica. How many roles did he want to play? I threw the phone against the wall, and the screen shattered into a spiderweb. Ethan woke up startled and reflexively held me. What's wrong? I had a nightmare, I said. I mistook your phone for a centipede biting me in my dream, and I smashed it. Sorry. He didn't care about the phone but held me tighter. Sleep, I'm here with you. I felt relieved. All the items on the list were completed. But someday, these memories would turn into the sharpest knife. Ethan suddenly became busier and busier. He told me there were more cases at the law firm. I didn't ask further. Sometimes, he came home at dawn, often leaving in the middle of stormy, thundering nights after a phone call. Whenever he left, I packed my things. During this time, Monica posted a photo on Twitter. It was a shot from the passenger seat, without any caption. But I recognized Ethan's car immediately. This car, Ethan and I picked it out together. At the time, I told Ethan that the passenger seat was reserved just for me. Ethan didn't say anything, but no one else ever adjusted that seat. I smirked. If I tried sitting in it now, I'd probably have to adjust it. Whatever, it's not a big deal. I've scheduled my surgery for the same day as Monica's due date. The day before the surgery is my mom's death anniversary. After my mom passed away, my dad remarried. I grew up with my grandmother. She passed away a couple of years ago, so now I don't really have any family. Ethan never let me feel alone. No matter what he had going on, he'd always drop it to take me to mourn my mother, rain or shine. But this year, seems like he forgot what today is. He only knows that Monica's due date moved up, her water broke, and she's having a difficult labor. Now he's in front of the labor room, praying for her and the baby. I bought flowers and some offerings, drove to the cemetery, sat there for a long time, and talked to my mom. About work. About life. About Ethan. Mom, this year Ethan didn't come. He won't be coming anymore. I've decided to divorce him. From now on, it's just me again. I sniffle but smile. Don't worry about me. I'll live well on my own. I'll make lots of money, buy a big house, and live a good life. As it got late, I drove back down the mountain. When I got home, Ethan still wasn't back. No surprise. Almost laughable, really. I contacted Lily. Think you can come help me move? Lily came over without a word and, looking at my packed things, said, at least tell your muscle the reason? I smirked. Ethan's with Monica for labor. Let's get moving. As we moved the last box out, I glanced back at the house. Sometimes, letting go is just that simple. I smiled and closed the door. Ethan furrowed his brow. He felt a sense of dread. It seemed like he had forgotten something important. He wanted to check his phone notes but realized he didn't have his phone on him. Just as he turned to go to the car, the labor room door opened. A nurse told him it was a girl. Both mother and daughter were safe. He postponed finding his phone, taking care of the paperwork and tending to Monica. When Monica woke up and saw the baby, she suggested he name her. But he thought of Wendy. What would it be like if he and Wendy had a child? He'd be a great dad for sure. He had already practiced, even checked out schools for their future kid'd be an amazing dad for his and Wendy's child. Thinking about this, Ethan couldn't help but smile and said, Gina. Monica smiled. That's a lovely name. The baby will love it. Then Ethan realized, frowning, Monica, you misunderstood. That's the name I picked for a child with Wendy. Monica froze, your child with Wendy? Ethan, have you fallen for Wendy? Ethan didn't deny it. When you came back, I was confused about my feelings for you. But recently, I finally figured it out. Ethan smiled. When I first imagined having a child with Wendy, when I first practiced making formula, I realized I really want a child with Wendy. I have nostalgia, frustration, and anger towards you. But no love. I love Wendy. Monica's tears started falling. And what about me? What am I, Ethan? What about all the care you've shown me lately? Consider it a misunderstanding caused by my confusion. Monica laughed through her tears. Ethan, do you know, you're really hurting me. I'm sorry. If you need anything, I'll help as much as I can. After saying this, Ethan felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He desperately wanted to contact Wendy. He finally found his phone. But when he saw the reminder from his notes, he felt like he was dropped into an icy abyss. Yesterday was Wendy's mom's death anniversary. He forgot. How could he have forgotten? Panic set in, spreading like wildfire through dry leaves. He called Wendy. Sorry, the number you have dialed is currently unavailable. Please try again later. Why isn't she answering? Ethan drove home as fast as he could. Most things in the house were unchanged. The items they had prepared for the baby were still there. But something was missing. His first instinct was to look in the closet. Only his clothes were left. Not just that. Every trace of her had vanished from the house. As if she was completely erased from his life. Ethan remembered something. Opening a storage cabinet, seeing a pile of broken things, he collapsed to the ground. These were mementos from their special days together. Wendy had said these were the most important things between them. If she didn't want them anymore, it meant she didn't want him anymore. Impossible. Wendy loved him so much. Wendy couldn't possibly give him up. She had liked him for so long, he'd always known. But seeing a shredded pregnancy test result, he was filled with fear. Wendy was pregnant. The test was from 3 months ago. When Monica came back. He didn't know for 3 months. Ethan's eyes widened. No, he wasn't completely oblivious. Wendy had dropped many hints. In the last 3 months, Wendy had found many excuses to avoid intimacy. She had morning sickness several times. She'd been wearing loose clothes. Wendy had suddenly asked him to play the role of a dad. If only he had been careful enough. If only he hadn't been so distracted by Monica's return. Turns out, Wendy knew everything. She wasn't not angry, she was just slowly building up her disappointment. He knew how stubborn Wendy could be. He had to find Wendy and beg for her forgiveness. Had to tell her he loved her. But he couldn't find Wendy anywhere. The next time I saw Ethan was 3 months after my abortion. I knew he had been looking for me the whole time. But he wasn't all powerful. If I wanted to hide, there was no way he could find me. This time, I reached out to talk about the divorce. Ethan looked worn out. His stubble was untrimmed, and his shirt was no longer crisp and clean, with wrinkles all over. When he saw me, the first thing he asked was, "Is the baby still here?" I looked at him calmly. He already knew the answer. His eyes were bloodshot. He took off his black backpack and started pulling out baby items. This is a new bottle I bought. These are clothes for when the baby is 1 month old, 3 months old, 7 months old. This is a silver bracelet for the baby. This is a longevity lock. Stop it, Ethan, I interrupted. He didn't respond, just silently continued to lay out everything from the backpack. Wendy, Ethan tried to come over and hug me. I stepped back. His outstretched hand dropped uselessly to his sides. I've been looking for you this whole time. I miss you so much, Wendy. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have gone to see Monica while you were pregnant. I don't want to hear it. I cut him off and pulled out a divorce agreement. Sign it. He looked at me in disbelief, his eyes reddening. I've kept the baby stuff at home. Except for the play mat, which got moldy, so I replaced it. Not sure if you'll like the new color. Wendy, can you come home and check it out with me? I repeated, Ethan, sign it. I won't sign. There's no way I'll sign that. He tore the divorce papers in half. I pulled out a box of copied divorce agreements. How many more do you need to tear up? Is this enough? Wendy, I've already lost my child. I look at the baby things every day at home, and you don't know how much it hurts. I was crazy to be a dad, but knowing it's my fault, that I lost the baby because of me, feels like I'm being tortured. Isn't this punishment enough? Why can't you forgive me? Forgive you? I sneered. But what about me? You were with me because Monica was seeing someone else. You married me because Monica got married to someone else. The moment Monica came back, you were lost. And now, you want me to forgive you? Ethan's face turned pale. You knew all that. He pleaded again and again, Wendy, I don't love Monica anymore. I love you now. I laughed out loud. I've loved you for 3 years, and now you're just starting to love me back. Ethan, sign the papers. Don't make me lose respect for you. In the end, Ethan signed the agreement, but he stubbornly looked me in the eye. Wendy, I won't give up on you. I signed to end a past relationship that was unfair to you. I'll start over and make you see my sincerity. Ethan could be scarily obsessive about some things. Part of why his law firm was so successful was because of his obsessive personality. But he always managed to keep things in balance. This time, though, he was obsessing like a madman. Ethan followed me every day. He generally didn't interfere with my life, but whenever I had free time, he would open his backpack and show me what was inside. Sometimes it was a bottle of prepared formula, sometimes homemade baby food, or various sets of baby clothes for different ages. He showed them to me with a kind of pride. At first, I ignored it, thinking he would eventually give up. But he stuck to me like gum that wouldn't come off. Annoyed, I held back my temper and told him, Ethan, if you want to stay trapped in past memories, that's your problem. Don't drag me back. Do you know how I feel when I think about the past now? I feel disgusted. Why do I have to accept you just because you say you love me? Aren't you trying to win me back? Well, here's my answer, I'll never forgive you, and I'll never be with you, so don't be pathetic, Ethan. Ethan stood there dejectedly, as if all the strength had been drained from his body. After that, he stopped coming around. But then Monica contacted me out of nowhere. Wendy, are you satisfied now? All Ethan can think about is you and that non-existent child. He has no room for me. I coldly retorted, I should be asking you that. I've already stepped aside, what more do you want? You were planning to leave all along. You never intended to keep Ethan's child. But you gave him a dream of being a dad, only to shatter it, telling him he handed you the knife himself. Now, he stays home all day, holding a doll, saying it's your child with him. Monica was getting increasingly agitated. I had no interest in listening to her hysterical rage. I hung up the phone. Monica, however, kept sending me videos every day. In the videos, Ethan was always holding a doll in each one. He called out the names he had once mentioned. We'd name our daughter. I felt nothing and blocked Monica. A month later, the police contacted me, asking if I knew Ethan and if I could come deal with his situation. I asked them to contact someone else. The officer said Ethan only remembered my contact info. I had no choice but to go to the police station. The officer explained the situation to me. Ethan brought a doll to kindergarten, insisting on enrolling it for classes. After repeated refusals, the principal had to call the police. If a family member has mental issues, I suggest you keep a close eye on him. He seems quite dependent on you, said the officer. Ethan walked up to me with a doll in his arms, wearing a gentle smile. Wendy, let's go enroll Gina. I looked at him calmly. Ethan, stop pretending. Ethan's expression froze for a moment. He stubbornly grabbed my hand. Wendy, let's go enroll Gina. I took the doll from his hand and flung it to the ground. Even if you were insane or even dead right now, I wouldn't blink an eye. I turned and walked out of the police station. His hoarse voice came from behind me. If I die, will you forgive me? The wind was strong. I didn't look back. Later, I ran into Monica. She looked pale and had lost a lot of weight. She glared at me with hatred. I walked past her indifferently. I vaguely heard Lily mention that Monica had asked her ex-husband for child support, only to find out the kid wasn't his. Now, she's being sued by him for various costs. Monica called me again, her voice breaking with tears. Wendy, Ethan's in a bad shape. If you have any conscience left, come see him. I was silent. I had none. That conscience was fed to the dogs 3 years ago.